Kai doesn't want to hide away from exploring an existing book of stories, whether it be the Japanese samurai on Honor Killed the Samurai or the Greek mythology used on Orpheus vs. Sirens. Well, Kai's powerful whisper on this album explores the book of Genesis, the first book of the Hebrew Bible in the Old Testament. In turn, Genesis is about the creation of the world. Now, yeah, this video may be a little all over the place, but I'm going to start with some context about what Kai explores on this album. Drawing parallels to his own life in Brownsville, New York, Kai touches on the story of Cain and Abel. In short, Cain and Abel were the two sons of Adam and Eve. As told in the book of Genesis, Cain was a farmer and Abel, the younger brother, was a shepherd. Both brothers made sacrifices to God, but God favoured Abel's. Cain led Abel to the fields, rose against his brother, and killed him. When the Lord questioned Cain about Abel's whereabouts, Cain replied with, "And listen here, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" God condemned Cain to a life of wandering, and Cain dwelled in the land of Nod. While here, Cain's wife gave birth to his first son, Enoch. Now, if you know this album, just from that little bit of context you will have heard so many references already. In this album, Kai brings you in close, whispers in your ear as the world falls apart around you. He likens the story of Cain and Abel to the violence of his hometown, exploring the injustices of the American society. Darkness towers over any theme on the album, and Kai poetically pulls you into his stories. Once again, Kai's not energetic, but he isn't lethargic either. He's potent, with every lyric hitting just as hard as the last, with plenty of cracking open to do with every word he spits. This album evokes a weird feeling about what it means to be damned. Are you born the way you are, or do you learn? Now, with a bit of context out of the way, we can move on to the title and cover of the album. Firstly, the cover is a depiction of Cain slaying Abel in the fields. Then the title is up for interpretation because, as always, Kai delivers more than one meaning. The obvious meaning is Kai's talking about the sons of Cain, the evil in America's society, the evil that runs throughout Brownsville. But it could also be a reference to cocaine, as Kai references this a lot throughout the album, and how the crack epidemic plagued the streets of America. Right, I'd be here all day if I was going to unpack every line of the whole album, so I'm just going to focus on the themes of every song and the lines I think are worth mentioning. Just before we get started, if you are enjoying what I am trying to do with this channel, please leave a like and subscribe, it really means a lot.
You seem to have great influence here.
Well, when age speaks, youth listens, sometimes.
We are greeted with a sample from the 1953 film, The Robe, about the Roman military tribune who were responsible for the crucifixion of Jesus. The opening track, Every Now and Then, has a focus on duality, how the good, the bad, shaped his current state, the pros and cons of his life path. When I say the word Gotham, what do you think of? A city filled with crime, darkness and gloom. Well, Kai was dropped in Brownsville and had to blossom and grow roots just to escape the city full of crime. One of the best lines on the album appears on this track, with Kai being at his true metaphorical best. Ain't a door being on the floor, wanted to reach ceiling. Kai doesn't want to shy away from attacking the divide between the lower and upper classes, and this line does just that. The floor represents the lower class, the ceiling the upper class. Kai strives to make it out with Brownsville, but Kai, as usual, stretches this metaphor to crazy lengths with the word a door. Obviously, this sounds like door, and that door represents opportunity, but with Kai being from poverty, that opportunity is out of his reach, out of Brownsville's reach. He sets up the album perfectly with this track, bringing you into his world, introducing you to his mental landscape, and all this is topped off with the final sample on the track.
My name shall be called Cain.
Kai isn't an ordinary rapper. He isn't flashy. He isn't boastful. He is the instrument, his vocals sailing along the waves of every track, trying to squeeze any emotion out of the listener. He's the wise old wizard, trying to tell you his stories to fill you with knowledge.
And the meaning of Cain is possession.
This sample immediately follows the final one on the previous track, tying the two tracks together, and once again a cocaine reference is in there. Produced masterfully by Preservation, this is another track related to the death and violence brought upon Kai growing up in Brownsville, New York, alluding to the biblical verse Genesis 3:19. And then Kai introduces us to this heartfelt track with the lines, "I wonder why none of my people just dying of natural causes, just passing away, you know what I'm saying?" And that sums up Kai's childhood perfectly. With most people around him being taken away by the street life, Kai's a lucky one. Kai is one of only a few who made it out. Now, there's 3 or 4 lines I want to dissect in this track, and now I'm realising this video is going to be way too long. "Born head first in that damned land, I want that damn crown." Now, Cain was sent to the damned land. He was also the firstborn, and here Kai's comparing himself to Cain, or at least the evil within him, as Cain still resorted to violence when in the land of Nod. But he could also be comparing himself to Enoch, son of Cain, explaining how this evil and lifestyle is passed down generation to generation. Now, the most famous line on the album comes at the end of the first verse. "Half a dollar has multiple meanings, one being 50 cent, one being the police. Many Men" is a famous 50 Cent track in which he references one of his peers trying to kill him, and 50 Cent produces the TV series Power. Police are hated by most of the population where Kai grew up. Kai, in 2003, when Many Men dropped, was on his path for power in the streets. He quit rap at this time. It is honestly just mind-blowing how much he can pack into one line, and this is just one of the best examples. Another line which references the elements of Cain being passed down is, "Mummy preached peace, but in grief, I'm a papa son," as Kai looks to his father's more violent retaliation rather than his mother's grieving. Obviously, the clever homophones Papa Son and Papa's Son reference this. This isn't the first time Kai's dealt with his parents' conflicting methods though, as he speaks about them in his 2016 track Conflicted, which I spoke about in my Honor Killed the Samurai video. Kai and his metaphors, man, I don't know how he does it. Hate the Pull references pulled pork, expressing the hood's distaste for the cops, obviously they're referred to as pigs. In another meat-related metaphor, beef refers to the rivalry between different individuals and boroughs. Take no bull obviously means in these scenarios, no bullshit is taken. Ox refers to his sharp blade, as Kai stating that these are brought to the beef. It is amazing what one little cattle theme can accomplish in one line. Now, 2 songs in and there hasn't been many direct references to the story of Cain and Abel, but with every line Kai draws parallels between his own life and the book of Genesis.
Does one crime erase another? Friend, shall we turn dishonest because life is hard?
Kai explores his moral compass deeply on Honor Killed the Samurai, but he uses this sample to explore it again. He's questioning whether his life of crime has been worth it, despite him feeling like he was dealt a bad hand. This is also another biblical reference, as Kai questions the statement, "an eye for an eye." On this sombering track, Kai reflects on his so-called role models and how they moulded his life growing up. He strings these simple threads together, creating a more complex web of ideas, beginning with the line, "All our Santas carried them hammers," and ending with, "Our heroes sold heroin."
Cain, where is Abel, my brother?
I know not!
Am I my brother's keeper?
If you paid attention to the context I given at the start, this line comes directly after Cain slays Abel and attempts to lie to God. This track is beautifully produced by Aminos, who worked with Kai on the album Orpheus vs. Sirens, and this is all about responsibility, and it is filled with religious references. Whoever held a hammer had the hand of God. In simple terms, those who had the weapons in Brownsville had the authority, had the opportunity to take life. But in Christian tradition, Jesus is viewed as the Lord in human form and was described as a carpenter in the New Testament. You know, a trade that would require a hammer. And that is the difference. The hammer of God is all about building life, whereas the hammers Kai is referring to, a handgun, destroys life. But on Kai there is even more references in there. The hammer could relate to a judge, and them having more power and authority than those in question, an ability to take away a life. You know, I've realised how long this video is actually going to take, so maybe I'm just going to pick out one lyric from every song. We'll see.
Cain rose up against Abel, his brother.
Carr relates Cain's murder of his brother Abel to the USA's cycle of violence in underprivileged communities. Carr believes the trauma and violence he has experienced is hereditary. Survivors of my father, it's my old genetic, and explores his lineage all the way back to the first ever murder, Cain slaying Abel. He believes his desire to kill, well, the evil within him, traces back to the first violent human to ever walk on Earth. Obviously this relates to the violence in America, with brothers killing brothers happening every single day, a repeated cycle which seems to have no end. Carr's a blueprint for every album and lays the foundation track by track. And yeah, the instrumental switch on this song is like pretty much peak music. They love me.
What I bring is worth much.
Matthew 19:24. And again I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. Sacrifice. Something Carr knows all too well, but something he believes the upper class know nothing about. Carr tells the most depressing stories, but somehow optimism is still present. It is almost as if Carr is accepting the fact that the cycle of murder is never going to stop. The mourning of brothers will continue, but he remains calm in his own salvation.
Must we all suffer for what one man has done?
With my last, I ask me and my man's sacred matter at the end ascend Jacob's ladder. In Genesis 28 of the Old Testament, Jacob dreams of a ladder stretching from earth to heaven. The man Carr is referring to in this line is Kev, who plays a key part in Descendants of Cain, especially on the final track. Kev was Carr's close friend who sadly passed away in a car accident in 2015, and here, Carr is praying that Kev has made it to heaven, not just spiritually, but physically. Maybe this video is really boring, but I don't know, there is something about unpacking Carr's lines and themes running throughout his albums which is just so interesting to me. Like the line, "What I anoint in my cup, they runneth over," which relates to the biblical Psalm 23:4, which is all about being content with what you have, content with your surroundings, as God will fulfill your needs.
You can tell I'm the fact, the native. I live this vivid shit, I ain't that creative.
The land of Nod was the place Cain was banished to after slaying his brother. Nod was a violent and barren place after Cain was exiled there. Carr compares this to Brownsville, New York, and the crime-filled nature of the population. Carr lived in the land of Nod, but wasn't exiled there. He was born there and grew amongst the other uncivilized wanderers, whereas Cain wasn't born in Nod. Carr's a native. He was punished before he even took his first steps. He was born in the dirt and had to rise above it. Carr's a natural. All the words he is speaking is facts. He can't suppress his roots and the things that raised him. Once again, this track is beautifully produced by Carr himself.
These are the children of misery, the afflicted, the hopeless, the oppressed.
Now, this is one of my favourite hip-hop songs of all time. Can Rock, Metal Clergy, over a beautiful Marciano beat. They detail generational trauma, complications with their faith, and consequences of their actions. I mean, the first sample comes from a film adaptation of the Book of Exodus, and portrays Carr and Rock's respective communities in a damning way.
These are the children of misery, the afflicted, the hopeless, the oppressed.
Do you get it? These children are the descendants of Cain, left to wander, with little hope, banished to a violent place. Is this justified? Is it justified that these communities will continue repeating this cycle due to the environment they were born in? Is it justified that the upper class watch on as this keeps happening? This is what Carr's exploring, while also exploring the lineage of violence all the way back to Cain's murder of Abel. Cain was doomed to wander the land of Nod, but God sworn that no traveller shall kill Cain, which is arguably a worse punishment, to live with the things he has done, survive his guilt. And guess what? This relates to Carr, and how he now has to live with the guilt of all his fallen brothers. Carr and Marcy have to repay the sins of their father before they can be rewarded. Honestly, what a song.
Then thou shalt give life for life, eye for eye,
tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound.
An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Do you think that is justice? Well, Carr, as he says in the hook, believes any type of vengeance is justice. Well, an eye for an eye was put in place to restrict this escalation of violence, but Carr believes, coming where he's from, this is how you solve things. He has more trust in his weapon than the justice system. Carr is frank, he holds no bars, he tells you how it is, straight face, no fronting. That is what you get with Carr's music, a recollection of tales and stories, but with a deeper message, often hidden between religious references. And this album, as I said earlier, is laid with references to the book of Genesis. I love Carr's outro game has always just been astonishing, but this track right here is heart-wrenching and heartwarming simultaneously. Carr expresses his love for 3 different people in his life over an amazing preservation instrumental. Verse 1, Mimi, is dedicated to his wife, who he first met in 1995 but didn't officially get together until the year Carr quit rap, 2003. Mimi actually has a great career herself, working with Stretch and Babito, Pharrell Williams and Vibe magazine. Carr reveals in this verse that it was his wife who continued to push him to pursue his passion for rhyming, even helping him work with his grammar. Following his wife's advice, Carr released his first album, Ironworks, in 2007 and distributed it to friends and family. One of these friends knew the famous Jizza, and then Jizza heard Carr, collaborated with him on the track Firehouse, linked him with Rock Marciano, and from there out Carr's career has continued to flourish and reach new audiences, so Carr is obviously thankful for his wife's advice and blessing. Verse 2, Moms, is obviously dedicated to Carr's loving mother, thanking her for everything she has done, putting the work in, for her sacrifices. In the same breath, he apologises to her, recognising how she deserved better. You see, Carr had fallen in his blood. This lineage of violence all the way back to Cain was always bound to plague him, no matter how his mother raised him. It was destiny. Verse 3, Kev, once again explores one of the most important characters in the album, Carr's close friend who tragically passed away in a car accident in 2015. Carr was brought up in a world of violence, but these 3 people showed him love, showed him the good in the world. These 3 people showed him health and prosperity, and these are the 3 people he loves the most. Carr speaks about violence throughout the entire album. Then, in one big switch, he remains calm and speaks about those who have helped him get through his tough life. Carr is relatable, a man who has experienced unbelievable highs, but a man who has experienced the lowest of lows. I'm going to sum this album up and its themes up with 3 questions. Are we born evil? Are we moulded by our environment? Are we all descendants of Cain? Carr's fanbase will always be a tight group. His laid-back delivery will always be a hurdle for some people, but he's a true poet, a man who leaves nothing behind, no stone unturned. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.